Good evening. I'm here with chapter 24 of The Earl on the Train. Chapter 24, Villains and Heroes. That's everything. Ida checked off the last item on her list. We'll drop these at the hotel and then go speak with my brother. Nick nodded, taking up her package and adding it to the others he already carried. He'd been silent today, helping her tackle her chores with hardly a word, his eyes always searching for signs of danger, always dedicated to both her goals and her safety. He was such a good man. Her heart still hammered every time she thought of the way he had poured out his love to her. Was it possible, marriage between a nobleman and a scandal-ridden businesswoman? It was worth consideration, at least, because Ida suspected that this fierce desire to keep him always by her side might, in fact, be love. They deposited Ida's purchases with the exceptionally kind and accommodating hotel staff, and fortified themselves with a delicious, spicy luncheon before setting out for the Imperial Potions Company export warehouse and offices where Alfred worked. As she walked, she marveled again at how different life here was than at home. From the loose clothing and bare feet, to the way men and women carried loads balanced on their head, to the pointed and scalloped arches framing doors and windows. Everything seemed new and exciting to her. She had little time to explore, but she would treasure what time she had. The midday sun shone bright and hot in the cloudless sky, and Ida tilted her parasol to shield herself from its scorching rays. "I'm so pale," she said, as if anyone would fail to notice. "Part of me wants to hide inside from the sun, but this is such a beautiful country, full of color and tradition and interesting things I've never seen or experienced before." Like the monkeys. She'd seen two more today, playing outside a small temple, bursting with color, and covered with statues of gods and goddesses she knew nothing about. Nick had needed to remind her the guidebook said monkeys were prone to biting. She'd promised not to take one home, no matter how adorable they were. Besides, she'd already collected an Earl on this journey. She had enough primates for one excursion. "I love that I've been able to visit," Ida went on, "and I do wish I had more time for sightseeing, but I would never be able to stay. I'm not at all fit for the climate. Though many Englishmen are able to adapt, I suppose." She gestured at a cluster of British soldiers walking in the opposite direction, their tanned faces suggesting they'd been in India a good long while. "We shouldn't be here," Nick replied. "Because I'm not suited to the sun? Or are you still worried about an attack? I'm trying to remain vigilant." "I mean, we British shouldn't be here. What gave us the right to claim this land for our empire? It belonged to someone else. It belongs to the people here." Ida gaped up at him. "You are an anti-colonialist." He gave an awkward cough. "I may once have made myself infamous in Parliament by ranting to that effect." "Of course you did," she laughed. "They laughed at me too, but unlike you, they laughed because I thought I was off my head." "My poor Nick, you cannot be what the world expects, can you?" "Nor can you." The smile he gave her was full of warmth. "Perhaps that is why we are drawn to one another." She fluttered her eyelashes at him. "And here I thought you simply liked the color pink." "I do. I love it, in fact." "Then there's something you must know before it's too late." His eyes took on a wicked gleam as they ran up and down her body. "I believe it's already too late, love." Ida looked down at the ground, pretending shame. "Nick, I'm so sorry, but some of the dresses in my wardrobe at home are other colors." "Damn it, Ida, then how am I supposed to match you to the curtains?" She looked up into his sparkling eyes, and they laughed together, fingers interlacing as they walked on, hand in hand. The realization that this was to be her life struck her square in the chest. It filled her with joy, this sense of affection and camaraderie, of knowing when to tease and when to comfort, this intimacy not just of body but of mind. She liked him, respected him, desired him, loved him. They would share a bed and a home, encourage one another's hopes and dreams, build a family together. He would be her Mr. Masterson, and she would be his Lady Sharp. And her good-for-nothing brother was about to be the first in the family to meet her soon-to-be husband. She rapped on Alfred's door, a tired-looking slab of oak at the end of a dark hall in an unimpressive building, with rusty hinges and a tarnished plaque stating Mr. A. Quimby. The door groaned as it opened, and Alfred's head poked out, his bushy blonde whiskers thicker and wilder than when she'd seen him last. His blue eyes grew wide with horror. "Ida!" She stuck her parasol in the doorway to prevent him from closing it, and pushed her way inside. "You shouldn't be here," he protested. "I told you not to come. I warned you repeatedly." "Oh?" A more astute man might have shied away from the icy fury in her tone, but Alfred had never been one to notice the moods of others. "Are you telling me that you are the one responsible for the bullet lodged outside our train compartment? Or the knife stabbed into my pillow?" "No, Did those things really happen?" Nick stepped up beside Ida, his towering form seeming to fill all the empty space in the small office. "They most certainly did," he replied, his deep voice devoid of all emotion. Alfred stared at Nick. "Good God, Ida, did you hire a bodyguard?" "I am no bodyguard, Mr. Quimby. My name is Nicholas Masterson, Earl of Sharp, and Miss Quimby's traveling companion, and I suggest you begin with an apology and finish by giving the lady what she's come for." Alfred's eyes swung back to Ida. "Traveling companion? You've become some gentleman's doxy? I guess all those things everyone said about you—" "Shut your mouth!" Nick backed Alfred into the desk, his hands balling into fists. "I abhor violence, but I will break your nose if you utter one more—" He froze, his gaze dropping to stare at the ledger book on the desk. "Well, isn't that interesting?" "No!" Alfred lunged for the book, but Nick pushed him aside and circled the desk for a better look. "Mr. Quimby, I suggest you discuss the terms of your agreement with your sister while I make a few notes." "Oh, Alfred, what have you done?" Ida sighed. "Nothing. I have a job. I record the shipments, nothing more." She eyed the paper beside the ledger book, its neat columns of figures matching those on the open page of the book. Or nearly. "You are falsifying the records!" "And destroying the evidence." Nick gestured at the fire burning low in the hearth. Wisps of ash that may once have been papers dusted the coals. "Or is it simply not hot enough for you today?" He withdrew a clean sheet of paper from the desk drawer and began to copy down the numbers. "Everything there is as it should be," Alfred protested weakly. Ida replied. "More serum arriving from the sources than is shipped out? Where's the extra going? Some secret stash?" "No, there isn't. I don't know. I only list what's true." "Then why are you changing the numbers? Are you saying that serum is simply disappearing between the sources and this facility?" "The sources are far to the south, one in Ceylon and another near Mysore. It's a long journey. Anything can happen. There's criminal activity." Nick glanced up from his writing. "Then why is there no potions black market? Excuse me if I don't believe the criminals here are so stupid they would destroy a valuable commodity rather than selling it." It's true. Also, if I'm not mistaken, the amounts per bottle listed here are higher by half an ounce than what customers are receiving in Europe. The contents settled during shipment." "Oh, for goodness sakes, Alfred," Ida said. "You're such a cabbage head. You boast of your important work, but you're no more than a lackey. You do whatever your superiors tell you, thinking it will raise your standing with them. It won't. They're using you, and if anyone exposes their crimes, you'll take the fall." "There is no crime. The serum is running out, I swear." "Seems to me that someone is manufacturing an artificial shortage to drive up the potions." "You're wrong." Alfred tried to snatch the papers again, but Nick yanked them out of his reach. "Can't you make him stop?" "And why should I? You deserve nothing from me after all your horrid threats. I could have been killed." "I told you I didn't do those things. I only sent a few telegrams. Lord Holbeck said he'd scare you off. He must have done it." "Oh, that's so much better. It wasn't you. It was only your friend." Alfred shrugged, not seeming to grasp the sarcasm. "What does he want with me?" "He's just one of those impoverished lords looking for a money-making scheme. I sold him your potion perfume idea, but I didn't think he'd attack you." "You sold him my idea?" Ida surged toward him, her hands shaking with rage. "You sold my idea!" Alfred stumbled backward. No offense, Ida, but you're just a woman. What do you know about business?" Ida's palm cracked him hard across the face. "I take a great deal of offense. You... Nick, help me." "Dim-witted, misogynistic fuckbeggar?" he offered. "Yes, that." She pushed her brother backward until he plopped down onto the dilapidated chair meant for the visitors he probably never had. "Now you listen to me, Alfred Quimby. I have a business that I started and that I intend to keep, and no one is going to stop me. Not mother and father, not Holbeck, not you. You promised me, you owe me. You told me you could get me serum, and that is precisely what you are going to do." Ida lifted her skirt, causing Alfred to yelp in horror, and unfastened the tiny purse tied to her petticoat. She withdrew 2 carefully folded banknotes and dropped them in her brother's lap. There, that was the price you quoted me. I expect 2 cases of serum to await me at the Grand Western Hotel first thing in the morning. The cases will be full, and each bottle will contain the correct amount of undiluted liquid. Mr. Masterson is a potion specialist, and he will be able to tell if you have cheated me. But, Ida, I can't. You will. I don't care how much it costs you or how difficult it is to obtain. We had an agreement, and you will abide by it, because your other option is that I turn you over to the authorities for fraud. That's blackmail. You sold my business idea to people who want to murder me. I think this is a rather soft punishment, all things considered. She glared at him until his eyes dropped to the floor. All right, Ida, I'll get you the serum. Please, just go away and take your nosy, hulking protector with you. Nick folded his paper and tucked it into a pocket. Excuse me, I got something in my eye. Sorry about that. Nick folded his paper and tucked it into a pocket. I'm done here. Shall we go, my dear? Yes, let's. I found that the sight of my horrid brother is making me rather queasy. She began to follow Nick out into the hall, then paused and ducked back into the office for a last word. Oh, and Alfred, you're not invited to the wedding. What wedding? Mine, of course, to Mr. Masterson. He'll never offer for you, Ida. Not if he's really a lord. Well, if he doesn't propose, I will. Good day. She spun away and closed the door firmly behind her. Back outdoors, Ida put up her parasol and took Nick's hand. Her happy mood had been squelched, but she'd finished the task she set herself. Alfred would do as she'd asked. He was terrified of prison. She suspected he'd flee home to England before long and find himself a new job licking the boots of some other corrupt employer. The street was oddly deserted. True, it was dreadfully hot, but the lack of people anywhere surprised Ida. Perhaps in this area of British-run warehouses and offices, everyone remained indoors during the heat of the afternoon. That's far enough, Miss Quimby. Ida and Nick spun as one. Lord Holbeck stood a few feet away, a heavy revolver in his hand. His wife, garbed in a dress the same shade of pink as Ida's, toyed with a gleaming gold knife. She smiled sweetly. Such a pleasure to see you again, Miss Quimby, she cooed. You really should have heeded our warnings, however. My husband is dreadfully out of sorts, as you can see. Lord Holbeck leveled his gun at Ida, gesturing for her to step into the narrow alley next to Alfred's building. Nick leapt in front of her, but she slipped out from behind him, snapping her parasol closed and brandishing it like a club. Lady Holbeck laughed. You're so fierce, Miss Quimby. How utterly charming. No wonder you weren't scared off by the silly things like gunfire and steak knives. I think perhaps we could have been friends under different circumstances. You mean if you weren't an evil business-stealing murderous harpy? Nick reached inside his coat, but Lord Holbeck swung the pistol to aim right for his heart. Hands where I can see them, Sharp, he barked. I've heard about you and your love of potions, and I won't have you using any of them on me. Now get into that alley before anyone happens along and sees us. We'll take it from here, a new voice rang out. The thin-faced man materialized from somewhere down the alley, flanked by 2 men easily as tall as Nick, with bulging arms and necks as thick as tree trunks. What the devil? Holbeck exclaimed. I have a prior claim on the Earl here, Thin-Face said. His high monotone voice sent a chill down Ida's spine. You could have the girl. He knows too much, Holbeck spat. He could ruin my business. My business, darling, Lady Holbeck replied, sidling up to him. You wouldn't know a perfume if it hit you in the face. Shut your trap, wench. Can't you see? Lady Holbeck plunged her knife into his gut, and his words became a scream. She gave the blade a vicious twist before yanking it free. Oh, dear. It seems my husband has been set upon by ruffians. Such a dangerous, uncivilized place, this. Ida looked away from Holbeck's crumpled, whimpering form, bile rising in her throat. Her grip tightened on her parasol. She wouldn't let herself or Nick suffer the same fate. Run, Ida, Nick whispered. I'll hold them off until you get away. She pressed closer to him. No. Please, Ida. The girl is yours, Lady Holbeck, Thin-Face said. We'll handle Lord Sharp. He snapped his fingers, and the 2 thugs sprang at Nick, grabbing him and hauling him away as he struggled to break free. No! Ida screamed. Lady Holbeck darted forward, and Ida swung the parasol to keep her at arm's length. Help! Footsteps echoed in the distance. The road couldn't remain empty for long in such a bustling city. Someone would hear her. Help! She shouted again. Run, Ida! Nick shouted. One of the thugs landed a punch to his gut, and Nick grunted and doubled over. He responded with an elbow to the man's ribs. "Run!" he gasped. "You're faster than she is!" Ida swung at Lady Holbeck again, catching the brim of her wide hat and sending it flying. "I won't leave you!" The footsteps came nearer, and a trio of redcoats turned off a side street, their swords drawn. "Help us!" Ida screamed, putting all the air she had behind her words. "We're under attack!" She and Lady Holbeck circled one another as the soldiers came running over. The men stopped several yards away, surveying the scene. "See that chit with the parasol doesn't run away," Thin-Face barked instructions. The soldiers nodded and spread out to block any path of escape. "What?" Fueled with a new fury, Ida landed a blow to Lady Holbeck's arm that drew a yelp of pain. "You traitorous blackguards! I am a citizen of Her Majesty's Empire, and he is a peer of the realm. How dare you stand there and eep!" She darted out of reach of the knife. "And just watch us struggle!" One of the thugs grappling with Nick collapsed, the sleeping potion syringe jutting from his arm. The second stumbled backwards, clawing at his face before slumping to the ground. Nick whirled to face Ida, shouting her name, the stun potion clenched in his hand. Blood ran down the side of his face, and he winced as he limped toward her. "You fools!" Thin-Face snarled. "Didn't you hear the man say not to let him reach inside his coat?" He snapped his fingers at the soldiers. "Get him!" The trio converged on Nick, forming a circle around him. One of them flicked his sword, and the stun potion went flying. Nick cried out and clutched his hand. "Nick!" Ida kicked at Lady Holbeck, catching her in the shin before bringing the parasol down on her right shoulder. Lady Holbeck staggered, but neither fell nor lost her grip on the knife. She backed off, regrouping, regarding Ida with that vicious, sweet smile. "Don't worry, dear. He'll be dead soon, so what does it matter if they kill your lover?" Ida shuffled toward the middle of the street, trying to stay where she could see Nick. Somehow she needed to get past Lady Holbeck if she were to have any chance to save him. "Don't let him reach in that coat," Thin-Face warned the soldiers. The soldiers pressed closer. Nick jammed his hands into his outer pockets, coming up with nothing more than a few coins, the receipts from Ida's morning purchases, and Anna the boy rabbit. Ida's heart threatened to pound out of her chest. Without his potions he was defenseless. The soldier behind Nick slashed at him, splitting open both the frock coat and the waistcoat beneath. A spot of blood bloomed on Nick's white shirt. "No!" Ida ran toward him, thinking of nothing except reaching him before one of those swords went straight through his heart. Lady Holbeck lunged, and Ida only had time to twist and duck as the golden blade sliced through the air. The knife caught in her hair, wrenching it painfully, but she jerked herself free, at the same time thrusting the parasol at Lady Holbeck's unprotected groin. The tip of the parasol speared Lady Holbeck directly in her lady parts, and she crumpled. Ida swung her makeshift weapon one last time, bringing it down on her enemy's head. The parasol cracked in two, but Lady Holbeck fell still and silent. "Run, Ida!" Nick's cry was fraught with pain. He had dropped to the ground and was huddled in a ball, protecting his head and belly from the heavy boots of the soldiers. His ruined coat has been torn from his back, and the scraps lay strewn about the street, the potions out of reach and useless. "Run, Ida, please!" Ida ran, straight for the part of the coat that held the healing potions. Thin-Face saw her coming and grabbed for her, but she dove to the ground, leaving him grasping at empty air. Her fingers had just curled around the two tiny bottles when she heard the unmistakable pop of a cork. The world exploded. That was chapter 24. Good night.